The Dynasty Theory, your source for everything Dynasty Fantasy Football. With your hosts, John Bauer.
Looking to sell everybody price dependent.
Dan Lamagna.
Too much dysfunction in Cleveland.
And Mitch Sorensen.
Well, it's hard to compete with excellence.
What is going on, everybody? I'm John Bauer. You already know that. Dan is not able to join us today. He is being an incredible husband. It is his wife's birthday. Happy birthday, Mrs. Lamagna. Dan couldn't pull some extra strings to get on the show today, but then I'm joined by Mitch. What's going on, Mitch? This is a big day for you.
It is. So, I had a hard time sleeping last night, thinking about coming on the show, thinking about how you're going to have to keep me in check because there's been some things said about, the great trade that happened yesterday. And I think there's a lot of people who don't fully understand all of the ramifications of it. So hopefully you could help guide me in a way to where I'm just not pissed the entire show.
There are a lot of, I see Owen in the chat. What's going on, Owen? There are a lot of uneducated takes.
Yes.
And if you notice, we were providing our thoughts. And what's up, Rob? We were providing our thoughts in the chat last night, and I was on Twitter kind of just dropping memes and all kind of dumb stuff. But there's a lot of people providing actual takes, and they're misinformed, like you said. Whereas I was staying away from that until I got some more information. So I was able to drill down on the cap situation, how this really impacts it. And I'm glad I did, because the notes I had previously, you looked at it this morning, you're like, hey, that one section's wrong. And I was like, oh, yeah, I took care of that. So I bumped that out. But let's talk about it. So first of all, I thought this would have made leagues a little more active.
Actually, I had 4 trade proposals last night. And so I actually thought that was really good. But we should probably just talk about what we're talking about. So we're talking about the Stafford is traded to the Rams.
Everybody knows what we're talking about.
They should, but just in case if they don't, the Lions are getting Goff and his contract that we will break down. 2 future firsts and a third. And so I think overall, it's a great trade for the Lions. I think it's a trade that the Rams needed to make if they truly believe they're contenders. We know they don't value future firsts like most people in the league do, but it's worked for them. So I'm not going to sit here and bash the Rams and be like, oh, that's too much to give up for Stafford, because Goff was never going to win them a Super Bowl. Can Stafford? I don't know. But he's going to give them a better opportunity than what they would have had with Goff.
A lot of people there on Twitter, and they're saying, well, who won the trade? And then, so-and-so got fleeced. The Rams got fleeced. Mm-hmm. The Lions got fleeced. And you hit the nail on the head. This is a trade that works for both teams. I don't think there necessarily is a winner, but people are saying, and I'm going to play devil's advocate to both sides. Mm-hmm. Well, the Rams got fleeced. And you kind of mentioned this already. Jared Goff is not taking them to he took them to a Super Bowl, but I don't think it was Jared Goff necessarily as much as it was Sean McVay and the pieces around Jared Goff. So I think Matthew Stafford does give that step up. We had some conversation in the chat last night, the Discord chat, where somebody had asked, well, is Stafford really an improvement over Jared Goff? Flat out, yes. I think he is. So then when you look at the other side for the Lions, people are saying, well, those picks, there's so much uncertainty, right? And they better hit on those picks, or this is going to be a bad trade. They weren't winning with Matthew Stafford. As much as we love Matthew Stafford on this show, they weren't winning with him. They're not a Stafford away. So those picks, even if they don't necessarily pan out, it is a move in the right direction for that franchise.
And you have to remember, Stafford wanted out. Right. And so that was the big thing to this. This wasn't like the Lions being like, oh, behind closed doors, we're going to trade Stafford and get all these picks. It was Stafford coming up to him at the end of the year and being like, look, I'm willing to stay, but I would like to go. And so that kind of hurts your bargaining power when you're talking to other teams. So being able to get, this haul for him is really, really good for the Lions. And like I said, I think the Rams are in really good shape. All of their playmakers, perfectly set up. I will still worry about that offensive line because we know Stafford is getting older. He has had some injury issues. So that's the only worry for me from the Rams perspective. I think they did a really good job here.
Well, at least the Rams, and you're going to see this joke a lot, at least they have some first-round picks to bolster that offensive line.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that you get offensive tackles in the third round. We all know this.
Now, speaking of the trade, we're going to keep diving into this. And I apologize because I feel like every episode we're talking about the Lions now, but they keep doing things. Something keeps happening. So it's brand new information. So for Matthew Stafford, I just think he does give them that opportunity. Tim in the chat, it's worth it if they get the ship. Famous fantasy words. It is. So if he would lead them to a Super Bowl, it is absolutely worth it. Now, the trade itself, the 2 firsts, that's a 2022 first, a 2023 first, a 2021 third in Jared Goff. A lot of people were saying, well, why would they want to take on Jared Goff? To get the additional draft capital. This trade, believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds, was not centered around, we're going to acquire Jared Goff, and the picks are a good afterthought. It's the other way around. They took on that contract, and we're going to get into the dead cap and the guarantees and all that fun stuff, the cap hits for the Lions, what stays with Los Angeles. But that is the reason they were able to get 2 firsts. There was no way in hell the Lions were going to get 2 firsts and a third from anybody without taking on almost $45 million in guarantees.
Exactly. And I mean, those guarantees were locked in last offseason, so they don't move off the contract at all. They're staying on there. But you brought up the dead cap that's there for Goff. And I think everyone should remember that any signing bonus, the Rams are due for that. The Lions don't have to pay any of that. So now moving forward, when the Lions want to trade, because I kind of 50-50 still if I think Goff is actually going to be the Lions starter this upcoming season. There's every opportunity for them to go ahead, do what we do in Dynasty, and immediately flip Goff to another team. I think and knowing that the Rams already hit a lot of that signing bonus, they're on the hook for it. So the next team, has $25 million in guarantees this year. I think next year's like $22 million in fully guaranteed. And I mean, that's there, and that's not a really bad contract anymore. Now that the Rams have taken over that dead cap overburden that's sitting there on top of the cap.
So overall, the breakdown I have, and Mitch, please jump in here if you think this is misinformation. I don't think it is. $43 million in guarantees past the Lions, $43 million in dead cap for the Lions in 2021, cap hit of just under $28 million. And then if he is cut, an extra $15.5 million. So that's where the $43 million comes in. Cap hit in 2022, $25 million, $15 million in dead cap, $10 million in savings if he's cut. So this could be a situation. And then after 2022, or after, I'm always like, what year is it? This quarantine's got me all. After 2022, they can release him pretty much for nothing.
Yes.
With minimal dead cap.
Yeah, without a doubt. Keep going. Sorry.
You always take that breath. And I'm like, all right, Mitch is jumping in here. There's 2 things I want to say. One, Jared Goff remains the starter in Detroit in 2021. And Owen in the chat said this, and I think it's a fantastic thought. They still use the 7th overall pick on a quarterback, whether it's Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, who is probably going to be gone, Justin Fields, if he slips for some reason. If Dan were the GMs of the 6 teams ahead of the Lions, Justin Fields will be there at 7th overall. And then you let that quarterback sit, let Goff play it out. Or, like you said, Mitch, they look to flip him. But again, Goff is not the centerpiece. You are going to have to add Jared Goff just to get rid of him. So I could see, I'm thinking here, where's a situation with a cap that, they have the available cap space, and then a quarterback like Jared Goff, even though not great, could still provide something. Washington, maybe?
I was actually going to bring up Washington. I think Washington is a team that could end up doing it.
Here,
but I actually think the dead cap number is going to be different for the Lions. I don't think that's been, because when we look at the contract on over the cap or spot rack right now, that dead cap isn't including what the Rams are already taking on for that contract this year.
Well, So those numbers are not from the website. It was a tweet that somebody put out.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
that I think it wasn't Joe Schmo. It wasn't some random person like John Bauer tweeting. Well, this is what it is. It's from I think a reputable source. So, so looking at the 2021 cap situation, yeah, Washington, they're 5th right now. And again, this is all based on that. We always say that magic number, 176. So this could stray a little bit, but let's say what needs added to Goff for Washington to take off, because it's not going to be, Goff for a 4th. Like, I
actually disagree a little bit. I really do. Because
why?
So we will find, I'm sure we will have articles from Over the Cap and Spot Rack that are like detailing this out to a T, because can I
say really quick, you and I, we say spot rack differently every time.
Oh yeah. Well, we just change it up, just to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about. But this is kind of the case when we talked about Matt Ryan. Everyone's like, oh, Matt Ryan has this $50 million cap hit when they move him. And then Over the Cap came out and was like, no, that's not really the case. No, it's Carson Wentz. Sorry. Talk about Carson Wentz. They're like, no, that's not how this works. If they trade him by March 5th, it's this. If they trade him by March 15th, it's this. And so looking just at the dead numbers, which I think a lot of people are doing, could be a little bit off. But I actually think this contract is going to be easier to move for the Lions than it was for the Rams. Because it's just a 2-year guaranteed deal right now.
Right.
And so after that, and so it's not, the Rams already ate that. The Rams needed someone to take that off of their books. The Lions aren't in the same case to where they need someone to take Goff off of their books, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, and this might be a misquote here, but somebody had a very good breakdown of what this adds to the cap situation in 2021 for the Lions and the Rams. I want to say one of them was like an extra 13 million. And one of them was like an extra 6 million because with the contracts trading, but both of them a little bit of an uptick. So when you're looking at the Lions, where are they in this cap situation?
So they don't have a lot of cap, but I never thought they were going to be really big in free agency to begin with. So this is just kind of, we have Goff. We don't have a ton of cap space. We're building for the future. And so I don't think they're even trying to be remotely competitive this year. It's going to be what the Jaguars did is how I'm looking at it.
So let me ask you this, because again, there's those two situations: to stick with Goff or to move him and then go with your rookie quarterback. Does it make sense for a team that's not going to be competitive? And we know they're not going to be competitive. Watch, they're going to win the division, go to the Super Bowl.
It's usually how it happens.
We believe they will not be competitive in 2021. Does it make sense for them just to throw Jared Goff out there, let your rookie sit, let him develop, let him learn the system, and not have his confidence shattered?
Yeah, Brad Holmes being from the Rams, he must really trust Jared Goff if he plans on him being the starter, because there's, like we know, a lot of quarterbacks in the league to where if the Lions are to draft a first-round pick, they're immediately pissed off and not talking to the guy about it. But so Jared Goff must be a good enough locker room presence to where the Lions are like, you know what? He will be okay being this bridge quarterback for a year or two.
And if he isn't, it hasn't been made public.
Right.
Where all these other quarterbacks, they talk to the media and you're like, oh, that guy's pissed off.
Yep.
We haven't seen that from Jared Goff. Even with recent reports, well, there's going to be an open competition here in the offseason. I haven't heard anything, and I feel like in today's day and age, that would have come out.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to this, I'm thinking Stafford on the Rams. In Dynasty, he's going to see a big value tick, right? He's going to go up a little bit.
I would say 3 to 5 spots for most people in the quarterback.
I'm wondering if it's going to be a little overblown, is my worry. Because so Goff's best year with the Rams, he had 4,800 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. That's close to what Stafford averages a little bit under that each year. He's like right around 28 touchdowns, somewhere around there. But with how the Rams run as much as they do, I don't know if Stafford's fantasy ceiling is as high as it's going to be made out to be, because his weapons are really good. He has Kupp, he has Woods, Higby's whatever, and they have Akers. in my opinion, that's not that much better than what the Lions have had for skill pieces in the past few years. Galladay, Marvin Jones, I think they're really close to Woods and Kupp. Akers is really good, but Akers is going to see a lot more work than what any Lions back has ever seen under Stafford. Stafford went like his first 8 years without having a 1,000-yard rusher on his team.
And you could look at it, and again, everything I feel like that I'm saying is one of two ways, right? I just want to give the options that are out there and the way we can look at this. The Rams defense much better than the Lions defense. Then again, everybody's defense is typically better than the Lions.
Exactly.
So you can look at that one of two ways. Well, the offense, Stafford's going to have more opportunities with the ball, but they're going to be able to run the ball. They're not going to have to throw the ball nearly as much as what Detroit did. Now, I don't think we're going to be looking at like a Tennessee situation where there's 450 passing attempts for the season. But I do think I like your thought there. It's probably not going to be seeing many 30-plus point games from Matthew Stafford, but I think this is a better opportunity to insulate his value and to at least maybe get a more stable floor.
That's right. He's moving up because the people ahead of him don't have better floors is kind of the only reason why. But I don't think for fantasy purposes, I'm like, oh, he's a top 5 quarterback now. No, I'd still put him in. Each year we probably have him, top 10, top 12. That's probably where we're going to have him projections next year too.
And I think that's more than fair for dynasty purposes. I like Stafford a lot more than most people. I know he's 32, 33. Get him to the nursing home. But I had him in that 12 to 18 range. And that's a 6-player tier, 13 to 18. And then I don't have that changing at all. So I'm keeping him there. I can't see me putting him up there with Tannehill, Rodgers. I still have them ahead of Stafford. But you have to believe with the draft capital that the Rams got rid of. And I know they might not value the draft picks. Ever since Jared Goff, they're like, no, we don't need it.
We good.
They have to work on an extension here, right?
Yeah, he'll be without a doubt. And actually, his contract works out perfect for the Rams. I mean, it's 20-something million a year, and they can extend him and add future voidable years on there for him. So Stafford's going to get paid a little bit too this offseason, which I'm sure he's really happy about.
And I'm happy for him. I know he wanted out of Detroit, but it was done in a respectful way, and it wasn't this big thing. Now, his wife, on the other hand, that's for another.
I don't know, dude. She wasn't a huge fan of the Michigan Democratic Party, and now they're going to California. So
I think it was more dictatorship.
Yes, I didn't want to go there, but
anyway,
said.
So there was a question from Owen in the chat, and I came prepared here. So this is a little snapshot of our. This is when I said a few weeks ago, I put 20 hours in on behind the scenes stuff for our upcoming 2021 projections. This is what I was looking at. And there's a lot of hidden rows here. So there was a lot to this. But for every quarterback, this is quarterback tendencies through their career. For Matthew Stafford, his target share to the running back position on average is about 22%. Jared Goff, 15%. And the next line there, you'll see I did a 95% confidence interval based on the average, the standard deviation, the count. So all that good stuff. So that running back min and max, that is based on the 95% confidence interval, and it's not based on actual minimum maximum that we saw throughout their careers. So you can see Matthew Stafford's range a little bit more narrow there, as opposed to Jared Goff, where he may have seen a wider range throughout his career. But it's, I hate to say it again, one of two things. It is the situation and the system they played in, as well as their quarterback tendencies. So I have a whole nother spreadsheet that's OC and head coach breakdowns. And then what gets interesting, and we saw this last year with Tom Brady and Bruce Arians when they clash, right? So you have Bruce Arians doesn't use the tight end. Well, Tom Brady loves the tight end. So which one prevails? And that could be a situation.
Bruce Arians.
Well, they used Gronk.
Kinda.
No,
they used Cameron Brate.
Hey, they used the tight end anyway.
Yes.
So the wide receiver average 57% of the total target share for Matthew Stafford, 65% for Jared Goff. That's going to happen, though, when one of your top receiving options is Danny Amendola, and then tight end, they're almost identical. So the question in the chat, which kind of sparked me to put this up on the screen, how is this going to impact TJ Hawkinson? I don't think it does.
No, I think he's the exact same. For me, he's still tight end 4. He's going to keep being tight end 4. I mean, unless Justin Fields goes there, let's just say if Justin Fields or another rookie was the starter, one that I didn't know was going to use the tight ends a lot, maybe I might drop him down to tight end 5 or tight end 6, but that's the lowest Hawk's going to go for me.
But we talked about the skill positions there in Detroit, so we're not even going to touch on that. But I think if anything, there's no negative impact on DeAndre Swift or Hawkinson. And the wide receiver core, we'd be guessing as to what is even going to be there. So we're not going to touch on that again.
Yep. Yeah. The Lions don't have a lot to work with right now. That's why I think they're going to be pretty awful next year.
And they're going to bring pieces in, I'm sure, via the draft, via cheap free agency.
Very cheap. Yes.
We just don't know what that's going to look like. So what I think is going to happen with these splits here, I think Jared Goff, I think while it was 65% in Los Angeles, that number might reflect more of what Stafford did in Detroit. So I don't think so. What I'm saying is I think personnel and scheme came into play a lot here, but it looks good for Cam Akers on the LA side. Yeah,
dude, Akers is set, but we had to talk about that in the Patreon last night. We're like, oh, he's going to go up. And then you go look at recent startups and I don't know if he could go up a lot. He was already a borderline end of second round, third round draft pick in Superflex leagues. And so he might move up to the mid second, maybe, but I can't see him going any higher than that.
Yeah. Running back 8 territory.
Right.
Somewhere around there. Last thing. Oh, and one last thing, or 7 last things, I guess. But I have a note here. I want to see the Rams, and this is when Jared Goff really flourished in that system. I want to see the Rams get Stafford, somebody that can stretch the field. And jokingly last night on Twitter, I was like, I don't care how it happens, but let's get Allen Robinson a Rams jersey. Cap, I don't care. Money, I don't care. Just
they'll make it work.
Just get him a jersey.
Love that.
But then somebody said, even though mine was in jest, somebody came in and said, and I love this a lot, Will Fuller.
Mm-hmm.
And he could be a bargain for 1-year deal. I know you had the issue. You're going to be suspended for a few games, but let's throw $6-7 million. You might not take it. You might not like it, but let's see if we can get him in for cheap.
Yeah, they need the Brandon Cooks guy back that could spread the field a little bit. But we were talking about earlier about how you were saying, you were hoping that it would drive up a little bit of activity in leagues. So I have 4 trades that I got last night, and I'm going to show everyone how awesome these offers are.
I was going to say, can we hear them?
So most know that I'm a Lions fan in these leagues, right? So I was offered Jared Goff plus Ruggs for Hawkinson. That's in a 2-point premium. So that's instant declined. I was offered Stafford for my Aaron Rodgers 21 second and another 21 second.
You could have stopped at Aaron Rodgers.
Yes. I was offered Tyrod Taylor and a second for Jared Goff.
What second?
Like 2.1 something. Very, very late. No,
right.
I'm not going to do that. No.
I still have. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. One last one. I was offered Goff straight up for Stafford. I mean, they obviously knew who they were talking to there.
Your reputation precedes you. That is for sure. This is a really good lead into what I was going to say, though. Jared Goff. I bumped him down 2 tiers. I see him now fairly equal in value to Sam Darnold.
I was just going to, before you even mentioned Sam Darnold, like off the top of my head, Sam Darnold. The quarterbacks that we don't know where they'll be playing in a year or 2.
So in terms of draft picks, I think the 205-ish is my tipping point. I have them in the tier right now, if I recall correctly, when I made the adjustment this morning with the 204, which I think could be Mac Jones. So if Mac Jones goes in the first, I'm going to take Mac Jones over a Jared Goff or a Sam Darnold. But I can't see myself moving Goff for 208, 209, 210 because if let's say he starts in 2021, there's more value there than that.
Yeah. So Goff or Teddy Bridgewater? Because I think they're in the exact same position right now, except for Goff has a contract and Bridgewater kind of has a contract this year.
Man, can I pull up my tiers?
Wait, I don't know what I think.
No, this is one of those situations where I have them so close together. And that's kind of, I love having the tiers, but then constantly, like in our Patreon, somebody will say, hey, what do you guys think about this? And I'm like, oh, gotta pull up my tiers because I can't, I don't want to say remember, but let's see here. Who was it? Teddy Bridgewater and Jared Goff?
Yep.
Come on, scroll.
To me, they're going to be dead even now. I haven't updated my tiers since last night, but I think they're going to be really close.
I have Teddy one tier below Goff.
Yeah.
And the reason for
which
that,
is fair.
The reason for that, I think there's still a better chance Goff starts for at least 2021 than Bridgewater in my mind.
Yep.
The way I have these tiers, Goff and Darnold potentially could start in 2021, but do they get another opportunity somewhere else? Maybe. Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think he's going to be getting a starting job in 2022. And then in that same tier, Ben, Brady, Hill, Newton. Winston is the only one. I think I could have Winston in between the two tiers, but everybody else, there are question marks beyond 2021, but there's also question marks in 2021, which has me just below Goff and Darnold.
Yeah, I think that's all fair.
And I mean, I'm sure we can nitpick about that all day. Tim in the chat, I got offered Woods for the 109 in a super flex 12-team league. I will keep the 109.
Yeah, that's actually a really smart offer right now, though, just to send that out for a late first and see if anyone snaps.
Woods, Cup, I like both of those. So Gerald Everett, the expectation is he's not going to be brought back. The deep threat they had in 2020 was Josh Reynolds. He's the only pass-catching option over 10 air yards per target. Next up, Tyler Higby at 7.6.
Hey.
In the chat, we have somebody saying Bryson Hopkins, somebody that I targeted a lot in rookie drafts. Is he going to be something? I always say maybe, maybe not. But for his price, especially if you're in a startup, take that flyer late, especially in tight end premium. So I like that name there that Tim mentioned. Anything else before we move on? I know we're talking a lot about the Lions the last few weeks, but it's one of the more interesting teams, I think, to talk about.
Yeah, well, after this, we have nothing to talk about with them until pretty much the draft because there's not a whole lot to like there right now.
Yeah, so, until Goff gets traded in 2 days and we got to go back to the Lions.
Yeah, right. But then they won't have anything, so it's all good. We'll talk about the other team that Goff goes to. But no, I think we covered it about the best that we can to tell. I'm really excited for one of these really knowledgeable websites to come out and completely break down these contracts and how it's going to work for the teams.
I prefer over the cap personally. And that's what all of our hyperlinks are through in the tiers. So I'm very interested to see how that breaks down. All right. Do we want to go into the 107 and 108, or do you want to talk about the rookie draft evaluation?
I would much rather talk about the prospect evaluation because I actually think the 107 to 108 might take 10 minutes because I have them both right in the same tier, and I don't think there's any gap between the 107 and the 108.
All right, well, let's go through the prospect evaluation, and then since we don't expect the 107 and 108 to take too long, if we go an hour and 10 minutes, I think that's okay.
Okay.
Dan's not here, so he doesn't have that hard stop. Dan's like, no, you're paying me overtime today. All right, so what do you want to talk about here? I think it was Tim. Tim's always throwing out the great ideas in the Patreon, and the process with the prospects and evaluating. I know how I stand on everything, but Mitch, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so I'm going to definitely let you take the analytical side to it because you understand it far better than I do. I was just going to talk about what I look for when I'm watching tape, because if you look at me, like when I was about 5 years ago, I was like 6 foot, 140 pounds. When you get older, you gain a little bit more weight. But so, of course, I never played football.
Wait, so this is why you're so against those low BMIs. It all makes sense.
It really is. Like, they're all hating personally on me, and I don't like it. And so this is just stuff that I've learned from, a lot of it's from Ray Garvin, Destination Devi. You got to follow him, get on his Patreon. But a lot of it's from him, and then it's just picking up nuggets here and there when I'm listening to different podcasts. But for quarterbacks, for example, so there's this thing going on right now to where it's about college quarterbacks going through reads, and they need to progress through reads. Most quarterbacks in college aren't asked to go through reads. Dabo Sweeney actually had, Dabo. I always say Debo, just have it. But Dabo Sweeney they were asking him, I believe it was about Debo when he came out, and asking, why are these college wide receivers, why don't they run good routes? Like, only 5% of them do. Most of them just they round out their outs and stuff like that. And he's like, because in college, with the hash marks being spread a little bit more, you're just looking to get your best athlete into the zone, into certain zones as fast as possible so they could break one. That's what college football is all about right now. So when I go and I look at quarterbacks, I'm not going to look at, hey, oh, wait, he didn't go through his read, because more than likely the coach isn't asking him to go through reads. They're saying, hey, if this isn't here, and in most college situations, if it's not there, you run. Or if it's not there, you do a quick dump off.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Please.
This isn't me taking one side or the other, just asking the question. One thing that somebody might say is, well, if they're not asked to do it in college, they're going to have issues in the NFL. They're not going to be NFL ready. So doesn't that put them behind the 8 ball a little bit?
It would, that's why the NFL loves the pro style quarterbacks. That's why Zach Wilson is getting all the love right now, because he was asked to do it in college. And so that's why those 6'3" quarterbacks in the pro style offenses just end up getting bumped up a little bit more if they have a strong arm, because they've done it. And so that's definitely something that's true. But personally, when I'm looking for it, I'm not worried about it, because I am looking for the guys that, if they don't hit the first read, they don't have the second read, they could take off for 15 yards. And almost every pro style quarterback isn't going to do that.
And we're already seeing that transition we talk about all the time with the Russian quarterbacks. And I know Scott Connor over at Dynasty and Chill, he's all about the Russian quarterbacks. If you don't run, Scott says, get the heck off of my fantasy team. I don't want you. But to an extent, there's certainly value and weight to when looking at that. And a lot of the NFL teams, I mean, it's why Jalen Hurts, people catapulted him up to top 10 in Dynasty simply because he can do that. His completion percentage below 60.
Yeah, he wasn't going through reads, people. Like, he was running, and he was running very well, so he had a great fantasy floor. Had nothing to do with him going through reads. And so that's one thing when I hear about someone, I believe it was the Draft Network, the Draft Dudes podcast. They were like, when you look at these guys, you have to look at what they're being asked to do. They were talking about defensive tackles at the time. If they're the 1 gap or the 2 gap, why isn't this guy rushing the passer and getting the sacks? They're like, you have to understand what's being asked of these players. And so that's something with me. And if I'm watching tape, more than likely, I'm not going to tell you what gap responsibility this tackle has. And so that's why I will never tell someone, oh, that defensive tackle's really good for this reason. But quarterbacks, there's some things I think we can look at.
Now, do you want to transition into running back a little bit here?
Not yet, because I have some highlights that I have for the Patreons to check it out. So one of the things that I always look for with quarterbacks is they have to have a strong arm. But how do you know if they're going to have a strong arm? I can't remember who brought it up, but I learned this a while ago, that the 15-yard out is the hardest throw to make in the NFL. That's where your wide receiver on the outside runs 10 to 15 yards and then cuts directly to the sideline. And he's not supposed to round it. He's supposed to just cut straight. The reason why that's a really hard throw is it has to be accurate, so it hits the guy on the sideline so he can go right out of bounds. Has to be on time, and it has to be thrown on a rope. Because what happens, that's where the pick sixes come from, right? If the defensive back is backing up while the wide receiver is making his cut, and that ball has a little bit of air underneath it, it's going to be a pick six each time. So I have some highlights. I picked Justin Fields just because I'm hoping he'll be on the Lions. So I'm a little biased here. But let me... Hold on. Why am I not sharing the screen?
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, can you bring that for me?
Add to stream. There we go. Woo,
okay,
fancy.
There we go. And so,
really quick, do you want to give credit for the video?
Yes, 100%. So all of these videos are from CalPro88. He has amazing videos on YouTube. If you want the link, just ask me and I'll send it over to you, because I use his stuff for whenever I watch tape, I watch his stuff. So it's really, really good.
And he is with Dynasty Nerds, I believe.
So, yeah.
And all of these videos are free on YouTube. So it's
completely, yeah,
not behind any type of paywall. All right.
Yep. Okay. So this is where we will see Justin Fields throwing out, trying to push play on StreamYard. It's not working. Yeah, let me turn down
There's no volume. You're good.
Okay. So did you see what happened there? Here, it was a little quick. So Olave runs about a 12-yard out, and Fields is actually on the other hash mark when he's throwing it.
We don't want to see that play. Come on.
I know. So right there. So you see how he's on the other hash mark? He throws it all the way to the other side of the field. It's on a rope and it's on time. That's exactly what I want to see. And then one last thing on Fields. We're going to go to... And then so this is just showing his arm as well. So this is a 50-yard pass that he's throwing, has the perfect amount of air right where it needs to be for the touchdown. Most college quarterbacks can make this throw. So I've kind of put this on there as like not a, oh, wow, look at how good Fields is. Like if a college quarterback can't make this throw, then I'm going to be very, very worried that he can't throw the ball 50 yards down the field to someone who's extremely fast.
Now, let me ask you, because one of the big knocks on Fields is that he's not hitting guys outside of the numbers down the field. But again, is it the scheme built around there? And where'd my nice little banner go? But could we attribute it to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think how many guys are going down the sidelines on the outside? That's a lot of it's that scheme. Alabama, I think a lot of it comes from watching Alabama, right? Alabama runs kind of close to a pro style offense. It's not completely pro, and their wide receivers can run routes better than anybody else in the country. And so when you have someone like Devante Smith, who could go down the middle and catch the ball and then go on the outside and catch the ball, I just think it's the skill set. You're not going to see Chris Olave running on the outside against a defensive back in the Big 10 or Big 12. Sorry, it's just not going to happen.
Now, before we go on to running back, wide receiver, tight end, and as that conversation went for the quarterbacks, I don't know if we'll get to the rookie draft picks, because I don't think we will.
This is much better.
No, that was good stuff, though. I like that. Now, for me, Mitch already said, and you guys all know this, I look at the spreadsheets, I look at the numbers, and we try to figure out the ranges and the probability that these players are going to be hits. So, quarterback, you really don't, I mean, I hate to say it, Mitch, but it's draft capital. That is the biggest driving factor.
Yep.
And I'm not saying you're bulletproof and you're the first if you're taking the first round, but 50% hit rate, maybe somewhere around there. Whereas you get to the second, third, fourth, that number, it's very clear that your odds of hitting for fantasy purposes decreases significantly. So there really isn't anything, again, looking at the prospect database for quarterbacks, you're like, maybe the quarterback breakout age, that could be something, but that's something I haven't really.
Just means they started younger, which is good. Like if you have a freshman starting quarterback, he's probably going to be better than a junior starting quarterback, if that's the first year.
Right. But I haven't been diving into it to look at historical comps, but I would be interested to see if that bumps up that first round hit rate. So when you start to tie those things together,
right.
So quarterbacks, maybe that's the one position I would say film could trump the analytics, because for quarterbacks, there really isn't much. And then you even look at the NFL Combine. Nobody really cares what the quarterbacks are doing. They don't
throw anyways. The good ones, they don't throw.
It's not a quarterback event. And the only thing, and I think this was, oh my gosh, almost 2 years ago now, The first guest we had when it was Super Flexology, Mitch, you did not make it on the episode, but I had Mike Lucine on, NFL Ref Draft, really smart guys, Mike and Ray. And he talked about where the throwing velocity, there's a minimum that we're looking at. So it's not like, oh, he can throw it 70 miles an hour, like, whoa. But there's a minimum that can kind of cut down and eliminate some guys. And one guy that he talked about, if I recall correctly, and I want to go back and listen to this, I think it was Dwayne Haskins.
It was. Yep.
And
you can't float balls in the NFL. So if you don't have the velocity, and that's what that out route shows. Like if you're floating it on the out route, that takes a really good play off the field for an offense. And you just can't have that as a starting quarterback.
So it's just funny. That's the quarterback that was brought up back then, and look where we are now. But Dwayne Haskins will bring the Steelers and lead them back to the promised land.
Something like that.
Yeah. All right, running backs, Mitch.
Okay, so running backs, college is stuff still, right? Because good running backs are going to look really good. So one thing they have to have is catching ability. If they don't have catching ability in college, like I'm willing to overlook them and just draft someone else instead. I want them to have good feet. Their feet needs to constantly moving. And then I'm not looking at their 40 times right now. I am looking at people are catching them. If they're breaking away down the field, I don't want the safety to catch him from behind. I mean, if the safety has the angle, they could be caught, right? But I don't want anyone coming up from behind and running down my running back in college, because that fastest guy on the defense in college, there's 11 of them on the field in the NFL. And so I just want my running backs who can do what Kamara does. You know what I mean? If he catches that swing pass, I want him to have the opportunity to go for 70 yards.
Now, my side, obviously, and is this showing up pretty clearly?
Yeah, it looks perfect.
This is more analytics driven. And again, it's finding those thresholds and just a range. So one thing I did, and I don't know, it's not going to show. Let's stop. I want to jump to the wide receivers just for a second to show an example, if I may. So what I am doing, and I did this with wide receivers so far, and this is on the tiers spreadsheet on the 4th tab. I went through, and for different measurables, what are the hit rates? So I have breakout age, draft age, and dominator rating. Mitch, because I don't have all of the weights, I have not included BMI, but you better believe I'm going to throw it in there just to have it.
BMI does matter for running backs. I agree there.
Well, so I have wide receivers up just because that's the first thing I looked at.
Yeah.
But one season with, and I picked a minimum threshold, 12 PPR points, breakout age 18, 47% of wide receivers with a breakout age of 18 had at least one season with 12 PPR points per game from that were drafted between 2012 and 2020. So it's a little skewed, because if you were drafted in 2020 and you didn't hit yet, it's not saying you're not going to. And then obviously the 2+ seasons that comes into play too. But I just want to show that very quickly, because I'm going to do the same thing for running backs, and I'm going to do the same thing for tight ends. So let me pull this back up and just some of the things. All right. Man, I'm so tech savvy, jumping back and forth, trying to be quick here. But the rushing college dominator, the receiving college dominator, this plays into what Mitch was just talking about, whereas he's just, talking about it in film. But one of the guys that jumps up in this class, look at number 2 there, Mitch.
It's almost like I have videos lined up for him as soon as we're done with this.
Kenneth Gainwell, and then Najee Harris, he's coming at number 4. So once you start to incorporate those metrics, the running back breakout age, BMI to an extent, those are things that you can start to drill down a little bit. And I know the big thing, and we've talked about it, and then I have draft age here, but the big thing for somebody like Najee Harris, well, he's going to be 23 years old, for the NFL draft. Yes, but how many 23-year-old running backs were taken in the 1st or 2nd round that had this receiving college dominator, and you can start to build that list of comps. And for him specifically, there's not a lot to go off of comp wise and the sample size.
Exactly. The sample size is funny. I mean, we have another great scenario. We'll talk about Devante Smith a little bit later, but there isn't anyone with his being a senior, coming back from last year, having a really low BMI, but being absolutely unreal on the field. There's not a lot of people that have that, right? I mean, people like to bring up, it's like John Ross. No, it's not like John Ross, because John Ross wasn't very good in college. Devante Smith was the best wide receiver on the field last year.
So while we're on running backs, just to kind of show.
Sorry.
No, you're good, because I skipped ahead to wide receivers. Heck, last week we were talking about 105, and I skipped ahead to I was like, all right, let's talk about the 209. All right.
I was right on that, right? Just real quick.
You were.
Okay.
You owned it. Pick a running back from this 2021 class. Any running back you want.
Let's do Jefferson. Jamar Jefferson.
Where are you, Jamar?
Right
there you are. Okay. So you can do all kind of things to filter it out. But for him, let's look at the running back breakout age. So 18. Okay. Obviously fantastic. So when we look at all the running backs dating back to 2012, they were drafted since 2012. It gives us, how many running backs are we looking at here? Not a crazy amount, but if I can move this, what do we got? 40. We have 40 guys here. So when we go up here, Jamar Jefferson, the receiving college dominator, or actually we'll drill down for draft age too. Bear with me. Sorry, guys. All right. So he's going to be 21. It drills that list a little bit further down, but then one big key thing here is going to be draft round. So we assume he's going to be drafted. Give me a range for his draft capital, Mitch. I can't hear you.
Oh, my dog was barking in the background. Let's go, I guess, fourth, because we can't select third because there isn't any running backs with third round.
Right.
Which brings up the sample size again.
And it's a really small sample size, but you're looking Benny Snell, Mark Walton, Marlon Mack. So maybe we would like to see him get bumped in up to that third round, but that's for every running back. Once you hit that fourth round draft capital, but if we want to eliminate that, let's disregard draft capital and look at the Russian college dominator, Jamar Jefferson. He's right in the middle. I mean, right next to Jonathan Taylor. Not a bad person to be right behind. But the big thing you talked about, the receiving college dominator, he's at 4%.
Needs to go up.
Yeah, we would like to see that go up a little bit. And sorry, guys, if I'm boring you here a little bit with the numbers, but this is just my thought process and what I'm looking at. But I think is Marlon Mack, is that a good comp? A smaller Marlon Mack.
Yeah, definitely a smaller. I think that's fine. But we all know with running backs,
when I say comp, I mean possibly career trajectory.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is we could break down these running backs all we want. Like I said on a couple of team breakdowns, if one of these guys goes in the fourth round, I'm probably going to choose whatever running back went in the third round over him. That's more than likely how it's going to happen, whether I like him more or not. Once you get to the fourth round, the hit rate just drops.
Yep. I want to see that top three draft capital. And I'm looking here. Last thing, and then
sort by height.
What'd you say?
Swift is like 4'10". Just take height right out of there.
No. But in terms of the physical build, I don't. Oh, I'm so excited to get my DeAndre Swift jersey. I'm so.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a sweet jersey, man.
Minus the receiving college dominator Cam Akers, that's pretty close.
J.K. Dobbins,
that's a good one too.
Yeah.
So just the physical build, but then again, those guys went in the second round of the NFL draft, so we'll see how that goes there. All right. So enough of
share my screen real quick. We're going to talk about my favorite running back here. So like I said, I want to look for feet. I want to make sure they could catch. And there's another highlight that I have in here that I actually slowed this down a little bit so it's not playing quite as fast. But so when I'm looking at film, I want to make sure they're playing against Power 5 schools. I don't care. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So we have that. But like I said, I want to see what they're doing against at least relatively good teams, right? I don't care what they're doing against Florida Atlantic. I expect these guys to do really good against teams like that. But
and was this 2019 against
this
Penn
was
State?
2019. Yeah, this was in the Cotton Bowl. And so right after this play, as long as I put it on the right one. Oh, sorry, 1 second. It's going to be one play after this. But, I mean, you have to worry about pass blocking a little bit, right? Now watch Gainwell. Oh, what happens? There's going to be a replay of this now. Watch on the right side what Gainwell does to the blitzing linebacker. Like, if this happens on Monday in the film room, the team goes crazy, right? Like, the running back coach sees that. He's going to be like, that's what we want to see. And then, like I said, you just want to make sure that they could catch the ball. So let me go to...
And this is one of those situations while you're finding it where the film, obviously the ability to catch the ball, and those numbers that I just showed with the receiving Dominator rating, they tie together.
Yes, 100%.
And nobody's saying, and I hate the analytics versus film debate. They should be going hand in hand.
They should. That's why I'll say it here. We make a great team. You could break down anything analytically. I'm trying my damnedest to learn what I can about film study, and a lot of it is just listening to other people and learning that way. So that's what, like watching that film against Penn State, that's why I fell in love with Gainwell. You see everything you want from a starting running back in the NFL. And so, like I was telling you, I know Javonte Williams is going to be drafted higher than him. Like by all measures, the NFL likes him more. When I was watching the tape, and I've told everybody this, I liked Michael Carter more than Javonte Williams. Michael Carter he's really fast. And so that immediately, perks up my ears. And then just watching him, he looks really good. But if he goes in the 4th round and Williams goes in the 2nd, my opinion doesn't matter on that. Like you go with Williams. I mean, the NFL is telling you who's going to be the starter at that point.
There were some really good, an attempt at consensus rookie rankings that were put out. And I think it was Travis May. And I had a conversation with him, and Michael Carter was a player that was brought up. And I apologize if I brought this up on the show before. I know I mentioned to you, Mitch, but that may have just been you and I. But for Michael Carter, if he drops, he has already seen a lot of people. They don't even want him in the 2nd round of a 1 quarterback rookie draft. So I think there's value to be had there, especially if he goes in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. And, that's that threshold. We're going to bring it up again. If you fall into the 4th round, the range there and your potential hit rate, it drops significantly. All right, wide receivers. I start this one off.
Go ahead.
So like I said, I went through and I did the breakout age with the hit rates for 1 season, 2+ seasons. And when you look at it, which we're going to do, we're going to go back to my spreadsheet.
Mine's more fun. It's video.
I know. This is boring stuff for a lot of people, and I apologize. But for breakout age is huge. Why? It's what'd you say?
Why is it huge? Like, I know it matters, but why does it matter? What's it telling us?
You're producing immediately at a young age, and you're not the oldest kid and biggest kid on the field.
That's right.
And the big thing, it's is it Eskridge or how do you freaking say his name? Where is he, that old bastard?
Oh, the one that's like 24?
Where is he at? Dwayne. If you're in the chat, is it Dwayne Eskridge? There it is.
Right there.
24 years old, playing in the MAC. And somebody said, and it's like if Juju went back to the MAC right now.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
But when you look at it, 47% hit rate for 1 season of 12 PPR points per game, 25% 15%, 9%.
It just drops.
6%.
Every year you're older for your breakout age, your chance of getting that top, 24 season just drops.
Can I say, now look at this real quick, because you'll see this across the board. When you're looking at breakout age, the hit rate for a player without a breakout age is a little bit higher than a player at 22. And when you look at the players historically that fit that, it's like a Tyreek Hill. It's a player that one reason or another, they might have switched positions. And the player this year that I think is going to be interesting, and he actually might have a 22-year-old breakout age. Where is he? Kadarius Toney, actually, I think he did hit it finally.
Yeah. Well, he's barely 21. He was like 21 and a half.
But he's a guy that, he played multiple positions. So non-breakout age guys, Jalen Waddle's on that list.
Yeah.
He is going to be a very interesting guy, and I'm not going to have him in any rookie drafts. But then, so really quick, a big one was Dominator Rating. I use 30% as the split. 3 times more likely if you're over 30%.
So what's Dominator Rating telling us?
It is telling us the amount, the market share of yards and touchdowns. And there's a few ways to do this. And I talked to Dave Wright about it, and he said Peter Howard does it slightly differently, but overall it's still relatively close.
So they're pretty much getting 30% of all the receiving work, more or less.
Yeah, and it's based on the career high and the last. And then draft age, well, that's pretty straightforward. How old were you when you were drafted? Only 4 players were 20, so that hit rate is very skewed. But then we want to see 21 over double there. So, I mean, it's really simple. It's really straightforward. It's nothing too exciting. Nobody's sitting there probably watching this live thinking, oh, yes, spreadsheets, yes. But it's stuff that I enjoy, and I think it's useful. It's not as thrilling and as exciting as Mitch's video. So speaking of Mitch's video, do you have anything for wide receiver here?
I have a little bit for wide receivers.
All right.
So when I'm watching him, like, I really wanted to.
You make that go full screen?
I can in a second. 1 second. So the reason I really wanted to put up some Justin Jefferson film, but I couldn't. Oh, hold on. Showing everyone our notes. There we go. So I really wanted to show Justin Jefferson because we all know Devante Smith is extremely fast, right? Justin Jefferson's biggest knock going into the draft was he was slow. If you watch Justin Jefferson on the field, nobody caught him from behind ever. It just didn't happen. And so, like John knows, I wasn't worried about his 40 time at all. I'm like, it'll be okay. But one thing I want to make sure they can do is in the NFL, you can't just run fast, right? You just can't fly by everybody. You have to have good jump ball skills too. So right here, we have Devante Smith, and he is doing everything you look for in a wide receiver. We have 3 different plays here. I slowed it down. So, and this one is just the route running. He goes up, goes 10 yards and cuts back. Perfect. And he cuts on a dime. That's what you want to see. So you're like, okay, route running looks pretty good. And this is against Notre Dame in the semifinals for the college football championship, right? So they're playing a good team. And then let me skip ahead again. And this one is Smith just being faster than everybody else. This slant is something that every single NFL team runs 20, 30 times a game, right? But hardly anyone in the NFL has someone that can do that. He catches the ball and just outruns everybody. Then one last one to just show his jump ball skills.
Really quick. Mm-hmm. The last 2 plays you pulled up, the first one reminds me a lot of Jerry Jeudy.
Yes.
And there's that one specific play, and I've brought this up several times, where he was on the sideline. I forget who the Broncos were playing, but he put his hand up like he was doing a go route, and then on a dime cuts back. The defender's not within 10 yards. Mm-hmm. And that last one, it kind of reminds me of Amari Cooper a little bit.
Oh, that's a really good one. Yeah.
wow, my film analysis is just blossoming here before everybody's eyes.
It's almost like these Alabama wide receivers are very, very, very good. Because you could tell they're just caught differently than other wide receivers are. But so this is a jump ball skills, right? So this is probably 170-pound wide receiver. He's going to go over the middle of the field. I mean, it's a pretty bad throw by Mac Jones. Devante Smith goes up and gets it, middle of the field. Guys around him, he doesn't really care, right? He's going to go up and get it. That's what you want. You want the toughness of your wide receiver to go up and get the ball. I mean, in the NFL, he probably gets drilled doing that, right?
He go back 10 years. Oh, he's not getting up.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's how the NFL is changing, and we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that we don't, like Hines Ward probably could have lasted another 4 or 5 years in the league if he would have been playing now. But times are just different.
Right. The times, they are changing. Tight end, I think you have some solid analysis.
Yeah. I have a little word thrown in there, but I don't know. Like, I don't know blocking schemes. I could tell you that I could look at them the same way I look as wide receivers when they're going out for a route. Sure. I could look at that. Can I tell you if he's blocking the right guy, if he's getting to the linebacker that he's supposed to get to in the run game? I have no idea.
So it's not film driven, but there's a few things for tight ends. And we talked about this with Stefania Bell, and she was talking about the tight end landscape. Mm-hmm. And it has changed completely. You're not necessarily brought in to be an inline blocker. Whereas back in the day, that was the tight end. If a tight end got 500 receiving yards, holy cow, that was impressive. But now you get these athletes, Hawkinson, Fant, Engram, Kittle, who obviously certainly can block and block very well, but just these guys that can play on the outside and play in the slot, and the tight end position is changing. So blocking, you don't necessarily need to be a blocker. Evan Engram, first round draft capital in the NFL. Does he even know what a block is? I don't know. You don't need to. And especially with the way the game is changing, it's such a physical position where you have these guys that are athletes, but not the bigger guys. Then you start seeing more injuries at the position. And that's something that Stefania, when we had her on a while back, she really talked about. One other thing, and I'm going to go back to Peter Howard, and I'm sure everybody's following him on Twitter. Fantastic analysis and insight and a lot of data-driven information. But he did something, and this might have been 2 years ago now, where it looked at draft capital for every position. And what Rob says Engram doesn't know what a catch is either. But he's an athlete, Rob. He's an athlete. That's my point. So going back to this, the draft capital, and obviously running back, first, second, third round, wide receiver, first and second round, quarterback, first round. Tight end was very interesting. The uptick came from teams that took a tight end. It was based on pick number rather than draft capital, which it was really interesting. So I might try to go back and find that. I want to say, like I said, 2 years ago, but that's where the slight uptick came. And it wasn't like, Mitch, you always joke about like R squared and the correlation coefficient.
How's the Python doing?
Right, the Python. But it's not like 100% a correlation coefficient of 1, but there was still a little something there where the pick number was a little bit more telling than the draft capital. But still, we want to see that first and second round draft capital for tight ends. But you have so many of these guys that they come out of nowhere. And Mitch, you brought this up to me. You were like, it would be really good if we could find something that would show you the potential for a breakout at tight end. And it's like, I
don't know how to get there. I think that's the last thing in the fantasy space that no one's been able to hit on at all. I think we're pretty good with quarterbacks. We could tell the good ones from the bad ones. But how do we pick out Robert Tonyan? How do we pick out Darren
draft pick?
How do we pick out Darren Waller last year? How did we know about George Kittle, who was a third round draft pick? We all just kind of pick up Kittle we pick up Fant, Hawkinson, Ebron.
You mean Andrews is a third round draft pick?
I thought Kittle was third round, right?
No, he was later.
Oh, well, see, he was even worse.
I have fifth. 146th pick overall. All of that can be found in that fancy prospect database. But yeah, like look at these guys that are taking the 4th, 3rd round. Austin Hooper, 3rd round. Jonnu Smith, 3rd round. Travis Kelce, 3rd round. Very beginning of the 3rd round. Jordan Reed, 3rd round. Like we could go on and on and on and on. So that's an interesting one. But again, going back to the film, what the hell? I don't
know, man. Sorry. So Matt is asking in the chat real quick is where are we looking to take a tight end in rookie drafts? Let's just look at Kyle Pitts right now. Kyle Pitts in
I yelled at Matt yesterday via chat. Matt, look at the rookie tiers.
That's very true. But I'm actually going to look at it from the different settings, right? 1 quarterback, 1 tight end dynasty leagues with no tight end premium. Kyle Pitts probably shouldn't be a 1st-round draft pick. I mean, if he is, it's like 111, 112. A championship team is looking to add some depth. When you get into super flex with no tight end, well, probably same, right? 110-ish.
That's exactly where I think we both have him right now.
Yeah. So, but when you bring in the premium, so 1.5 premium, probably right around the 106, 107. The 2.0 premium, if you take him at 103, I'm completely fine with it.
Yeah, once you get into that 2 PPR, and I say this every week, and I said it last night, but that's what I love about the Discord, because these are all conversations we have had. And last night, Jeff, the man never sleeps. It was like 11
You guys were going off last night. That was fun.
No, but it was a fantastic conversation. And he was going off about tight ends and premium, and even with 2 PPR, where he would take a tight end in a startup. And I would be interested to see what he would do with Kyle Pitts in a 2 PPR tight end premium league. But that all comes back to, do we think Pitts produces day one? Do you think you have to sit on him? I don't think, even if he doesn't produce in year one, it's not going to be a situation where, go acquire him next year for significantly less. You're not going to be able to do it.
I don't know. We said the same thing about Hawkinson and Fant when they came out, and lo and behold, we're getting them for seconds a year later.
Yeah, but even they were still going second half of the first in 2 PPR.
I didn't have any 2 PPR rookie drafts with them included.
I'll have to go back. No, now that you mention it, I think a lot of them were startups with them included.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them were. But yeah, so I'm on board with Mitch. No premium, back into the first. I know a lot of people, even in non-premium, they're saying 103, 104, 105. In Superflex leagues, do not do that. Don't do that. And then as you get into the bump up there, I would say 104 might be my tipping point in 2 PPR. Looking at this, maybe.
Honestly, I could see the argument for 102. I really can. You have Lawrence, and then you have question mark rookie quarterbacks going to bad franchises who might sit. Where's Waller going right now?
Well, in startups, he's going second round of startups, but
trading wise,
in the trade market, I'm getting. I talked about this. Somebody said they wouldn't trade the 106 for Waller in 2 PPR, and I mean that's just the rookie hype season. But
yeah,
you could talk about that for a while. But hopefully, Matt, that kind of answered your question on Pitts. Let's get into. We'll pick up with the rookie pick value series with Dan next week.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We can knock out 107 through 111 or 110 probably.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'll get messed up along the way. But this was fun. This was a fun.
That was good.
Of course, we had to spend some time in the Lions, and then Mitch doesn't want to show his homerism at all with the Lions hat.
Nope.
The Sims jersey, the Swift jersey. No homer there.
Yeah, I'm a big Georgia fan.
All right, Mitch, do you have anything else for the guys?
No, I think we're good. We'll see y'all here in the chat soon.
And I apologize if I put any of you to sleep with the spreadsheet. You guys can yell at me in the Discord. We'll catch you guys later. Thanks.